Half the world is composed of people who have something to say and can't, and the other half who have nothing to say and keep on saying it. Reading this quote by American storyteller and poet Robert Frost is the main reason why I decided to outreach to some of the major figureheads in the Broadanalysis community. It took some mustering of courage that I know for a fact I don't have, but when I started getting responses from these people that I idolized, you can bet I was incredibly excited as anyone else would be in that situation. These people, my idols, took time out of their day to reply to something that I said? Of course my first thoughts were,
Oh my god! 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 Oh my god!
Then after that little freakout and some mild groveling, I sat and thought about what I'd say. I thought and thought and thought about what to say for so long that it actually took me a day or so to reply, and that took forever as I made myself paranoid about potentially saying the wrong thing. It wasn't until after I sent that first reply out that something occurred to me that I should have been thinking about from the very beginning. They're just ordinary people like you and me, with hopes and dreams and flaws, and they're just as capable of making mistakes as I am. Now I know most of you are rolling your eyes right now, but it's really easy to lose sight of that obvious fact when you first come into that situation. These are people whose work ethic I respect and draw inspiration from, so much so that it intimidates me even to this day to reply to messages sent by them. Heck, even seeing their name in Skype or DeviantArt makes me sit up straight. If it hadn't been for me leaving my comfort zone and taking that first step, I would never have met or talked to any of the friends and associates that I have now, and this channel would most likely never have been made. Understandably, this affects people a lot like how it still affects me. The majority of them are usually content creators such as musicians, reviewers, writers, and artists. At some point in their minds, they're gonna think, oh, they won't want to talk to me, I'm not famous enough to be talked to by this person. Why would they want to talk to me? Why am I so nervous to contact this person? A major factor that plays into this might be that your idea for a response could come across as either too intense or too meek. On one hand, you want to tell this person of everything you enjoy about them and want to be just like them, so you send them a link to any site where your work has been featured and hope that things go well from there. On the other hand, you don't really want to bother the person or come across as rude, so you contemplate what you want to say for so long that you eventually decide not to send in one in order to not potentially bother that person. Now believe me when I say I'm not trying to dictate what is or isn't a proper response, but if you take the time to let your inner fan cool down a bit, you'll no doubt make a response that helps you gain a good first impression. Let's quickly refer back to the quote I mentioned at the beginning of the video. You're either someone who has something to say but your own doubts and fears of being wrong overcome your ability to speak, or you're someone who speaks more so than they should, and people may consider you egotistical or self-entitled and may not pay attention to anything you may have to say. Admittedly, I, along with many others, am an introvert who's terrified of saying something wrong or come across as rude or egotistical, so I micromanage everything I do when making a response. While it's good to be proper and polite to someone that you're talking to, being quiet and saying next to nothing won't help you in the long run. If you really want to associate yourself with somebody with a reputation, it will take a bit of courage to step out of your comfort zone and speak to them. Believe me when I say it's not a fun process, but it's better than sitting around watching everyone else gain more publicity while you twiddle your thumbs and hope someone eventually notices you. Now let's move to the opposite side of this psychological circle, the extroverts. The people with so much charisma and pride that it makes you kind of gag a bit. It's natural to have pride in your own work, but getting too wrapped up in it isn't healthy for you and only leaves a bad image of you in the viewer's mind. Same applies to sending out an email or a notice to an idol. Having a sense of entitlement won't help you gain any friends and will most likely lead to you crashing and burning. Toning down your ego a bit will help people see that you are indeed serious about your work, instead of automatically thinking that everything you do on the first try is pure perfection. Finding the incredibly delicate balance between these two is a pretty hard goal, but once achieved will unlock so many doors for you that it'll only affect your life for the better. Wait, am I talking about achieving inner peace or reaching out to horse-famous people?
One often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it.
Anyway, moving on to the next topic, let's talk about competition. People tend to get a competitive drive in them when they see that their content is starting to get more views. They tend to go scoping out other content creators and seeing what they do just to bring in more views, which is fine, until that person they're scoping out says something they don't agree with and you leave a comment that erupts into a full-blown argument. My advice? Try and play it cool. Keeping a clear head when scoping out other content creators will help prevent conflict, and who knows, you may even like their work to the point where you trade tips and ideas with them. I've seen tons of channels prosper immensely because they reach out to others for help and guidance, and many of them are some of the most well-known people in the fandom to this day. Another big thing that will help keep a positive light on you will be to avoid conflict at every opportunity. Don't get into a fight that won't affect anything in the long run. It's not worth potentially ruining your reputation when the silly little thing doesn't matter at the end of the day. People need to remember this, despite our competitive drives and creative styles, that we're all fans of the same few things: self-expression, free will, and pastel-colored magical horses. Now, if you absolutely have to respond to something that somebody said, then just keep a cool head and reply as calmly as possible. Try to back up your points with research and facts instead of immediately fueling it with pure emotion, as that'll only feed the flames and keep the anger going. If they still don't want to at least attempt to see things your way, immediately drop it and move on. People will respect you a lot more for it, and the situation will dissolve itself like a sandcastle during high tide. Now, hopefully what I've said here helps the next time you feel like contacting one of your idols, or if you're feeling intimidated or just outright aggravated by other content creators. It certainly helps me, but if it's not for you, then I wish you luck in your own endeavors with your own methods. I'm Gear Grinder, and